We use here the based on the technical model checking. We have the model, we have certain property, and the program or the algorithm here will check or verify the whole model to see whether the property is satisfied or not. And the property here is the fraud indicator. The property here in this research is the fraud indicator. And if the model satisfies the fraud indicator, that means the model is vulnerable to fraud, then we specify the control requirement in order to limit this fraud.
You're saying if the model satisfies the fraud indicator, that means that it's vulnerable to fraud? Because that sounds wrong.
No, that's exactly what I say. You see, this is the model. The model here is the state transition system. You see, there's some chaotic state, there's some chain. And the fraud indicator is the properties of the model, the property of the model that indicate a fraud potential.
Okay, so if it triggers.
Yeah, it's a trigger. Yeah, and in the terminology of model checking, that means it's whole or satisfied.
Okay.
What a trigger or a trigger?
Because satisfy usually gives you a positive idea.
Right, I know. Because fraud is not supposed to be whole or satisfied.
Fraud, yeah.
Good word. Trigger. Right. And if the model trigger the fraud indicator, then we generate a control requirement. So you can imagine the whole deliverable of the dissertation by looking at this slide. The first deliverable of the dissertation should be some language to model the deontologic process. The second deliverable of the research is a method for deriving or identifying control principle by analyzing the deontologic process over there. And another deliverable is the formal specification of control principle. And then the last deliverable is the implementation of the control principle and the deontologic process model in a working prototype.
Where would the principles be in your diagram?
Yeah, the principle here, each of the principle will be elaborated in a number of control rules.
The rules.
Yeah. Each of the principles here will be formal and specified in a number of control rules, one or more control rules. So a principle, then you elaborate the principle into a set of rules to handle variation. And yeah, and the process of that, for instance, in the research, there is 10 control principles identified, and from these 10 control principles, I have modeled 38 control rules to handle all of the entire life cycle of the obligation. So the first deliverable of the research is the deontologic patronage, I mean the formalism to model the deontologic process. So this formalism provides you a mechanism for modeling the entire life cycle of the deontologic relation, independent from their documentary evidence. Allow you to model right obligation as well as chain of the kinds of deontologic state. And the formalism comprises two components. A logic component that combines multiple modal logic, including deontologic logic, temporal logic, action logic, and so on to model deontologic state and deontologic chain. And the patronage component for graphical representation and simulation and analysis. But the interesting thing is two formalism here, two streams of formalism. One is a logical formalism, another one is a procedural modalism. The formalism are based on a single semantic framework of a state transition system. So I think I may skip that, but I don't know whether we just go into detail in this point.
Why do you say process model?
The process model, that means modeling chain in the deontologic state. A transition system can be viewed from two different viewpoints.
Take out the last two bullets.
That's the last one.
Take out both.
So keep this one. Right. Keep the main bullet. Or this is a very interesting point. You see, if we have a logic formalism, you have a procedural formalism.
Okay, so change the last two bullets to be as follows. Say, modal logic semantics. Let me write it down. Modal logic semantics as, so one bullet is modal logic semantics as state transition. Petri net isomorphism, equivalence to state transition system.
Petri net equivalent to state transition system.
Yeah. So that based on a single semantic framework, state transition systems. So bullet 1, modal logics. Modal logic semantics.
Yes.
As state transition.
Yes. So the second contribution of the research is there are two things. The first thing is the framework for analyzing deontic fraud. Here we point out deontic reality is the foundation for analyzing fraud potential. This is the key point. Instead of looking at the documentary procedure like historical method, we look at the deontic structure or the deontic process to identify fraud potential. And the research has delivered the taxonomies of contractual relationship and the taxonomies of deontic chain. Now these are two main dimensions in order to identify fraud. You have one dimension is to represent the structure aspect, and another dimension is to represent the chain or the dynamic aspect. So each kind of chain will influence a number of parties based on the structure that they involve. For instance, when the party A have a right to party B, then when he do something to release his obligation or to fulfill his obligation, at the same time he discharge the right on the counterparty. You see? And if by doing so he also obtains some other kinds of rights on other parties, like in the international trade procedure, again when the seller deliver goods to the carrier, the seller fulfill two things. The first thing is fulfill his obligation to the buyer to deliver the goods. The second thing is he's obtained a right to get payment from the issuing bank or the performing bank and so forth. So these are parties involved in the various deontic structure. So the research has identified the taxonomies of deontic chain and the taxonomies of deontic structure, and for each kind of chain identifies all of the involved parties in all of the possible deontic structure.
Well, I think for the rehearsal purposes today, you can move on. You know, if anybody here wants to hear more details of that, we have it in book form.
Yeah.
But we're now past 5 o'clock, and I want to make sure that you get the feedback about the organization of your talk. And
Okay.
this slide is, you're getting into the areas now where you're most confident. And these slides are fine. You know, we don't, as far as presentation goes, these slides.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
so let me go on the rest of the slide. I just say the
So
purpose of the slide and whether
Right.
we need to revise or not, rather than go in detail. Right. So based on this analysis, this is like the procedure for analysis. Right. This is like a heuristic, the way we do the analysis. And the next one is the results of the analysis. Based on that analysis, the result is a set of 10 control principles that cover the entire life cycle and obligation. And the principle is separated into 1 to 4 control of something, blah, 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 and so on. But basically, this is the results of the reverse slide. The reverse slide is the way to do, and this is the outcomes of that process. Okay. The next slide is like the lecture taught, regarding the control rule and control principle. The rule in that we have 10 control principles, and each control principle is implemented in one or more control rules. And we have the result 38 control rule in the appendix of the dissertation. And this one of the control rule look like